Hello YouTubers, this is the Noobifier. I liked dogfighting in Star Citizen. I liked the idea that choices had a payoff, trade-off, and consequence. I liked that the flight model was a simulated whole where the mass, inertia, and thrusts were calculated in real time, resulting in flight behavior. Shoot off a wing or blow up a thruster and the ship behaves like you'd expect, because it's simulated, not because it's fudged. That's the core mission behind John Pritchett's IFCS, which is linked up for you right now. John is no longer working for CIG, however, it's still my greatest desire that the current team takes the essence of what John was trying to achieve and does it. We need greatness here because I consider the flight model one of two core deal breakers: ship flight combat and first-person combat. Yes, there are other deal breakers such as justice, reputation, subsumption, and economy, but if the flight fight model and the personal fight model don't work, the game is going to miss the mark and fail to live up to my expectations. At CItCon, we had a 42-minute panel from John Crew and David Coulson, presented the history leading up to now, the issues, and how they plan to address it in patch 3.4. Here is the Principles of Flight panel in 5 minutes and 56 seconds, which is a record, so yes, this was a very big info dump. Let's begin. The gang got together to look at everything pre-2.0 through 2.4, which I consider to be where the things got progressively worse. Adding planets in 3.0 and the Gravlab mechanics basically broke everything a little bit more, and then ESP issues were the icing on the cake. Fighting isn't rewarding like it was before, and I'm very eager to try out 3.4 to see if the changes restore that enjoyment for me. The current new goal is to make you feel the ship, and feel that the ships are unique. You're going to need to change your approach depending on the individual ship you choose. All the ship systems are going to be a large part of the individual flight. The individual component upgrades are going to weigh in as well. Chris said in December that he was a little bit unhappy with how the ships are very agile. He attributed that to an excessive powerful range of thrusters. So things are going to be brought down to make space combat even more personal and a little bit more drifty. In space, ships are going to fly based on inertia, mass, and available thrust. That thrust can be generated by fixed or gimbaled thrusters, which is going to become yet another variable when choosing your ship. In atmosphere, ships are also going to be based on inertia, mass, and available thrust. But it's also going to include gravity, lift, and drag. Brick-shaped ships are only going to behave as good as the available thrust they allow. Plane-like ships are going to benefit from lift and flight as part of the experience. IFCS is a mixture of full Newtonian and plane-like behavior. It takes the pilot's inputs and manipulates the available thruster pool to best achieve the desired result. A strong thruster pool due to overclock or peak condition will react better than an underpowered or worn thruster on the same ship. The throttle in 3.4 is one of the biggest changes. Holding WRS when coupled will add thrust in those directions. Releasing the key will stop adding the thrust, but the ship will continue at the normal speed. To stop, you're going to need to add negative thrust or thrust in the opposite direction. In conjunction with that, there's a main throttle. This is available to limit the instantaneous force that the keyboard will make. This means that you can set the force in the direction that you wish to use separately. I'm curious to see how this works out. Moving on to Hotas. This has two possible arrangements. Configuration 1 is that throttle up will ramp up at a speed and a rate that you've set. Returning the throttle to 0 won't reduce your speed, it'll just kill the thrust. This works exactly like the other scenario. When you wish to stop, you use a retro thrust button that'll return the ship to 0. Configuration 2, you may treat the throttle exactly like the keyboard, where the middle of the throttle is 0. Ramping up will add forward thrust, and pulling back from the center adds thrust backwards. Some throttles such as Verpal have a user-definable detent bump, which could come in very handy here. When set properly, you're going to feel a slight bump when you return to neutral. The main changes here is that before, when you set to 50%, the ship would achieve 50% of its SCM speed, and if you change to 25, the ship would automatically apply retro to achieve your set speed. Now those actions need to be cancelled by the pilot. It's a little bit more Newtonian. Moving on, Afterburner is gone, and Boost is now called Afterburner. There's no more SCM bump. If you want to get to cruise speed, you just choose a rate and stay on the thruster. This works in any direction with any thrusters, but you have to be mindful of heat. Passing SCM will simply limit your effective turn. It'll stop you from blacking out or becoming a pile of red goop in your spacesuit. This seems to add a level of skill when dogfighting. If you're locked in combat and you want to turn at a normal rate, you can add a toggle called SCM Safety, which is a limiter. Pilots can choose to leave it off, but then you need to micromanage your velocity. Variable Specific Impulse Magneto Rockets, or VASMIR, is a real engine technology that's been integrated into Star Citizen lore. Ionize a fuel to create plasma and then use magnets to aim it. Each thruster operates individually and can be over or underclocked as you see fit. Changing the global power to thrust will change the output and heat. Afterburner immediately brings everything up to maximum. Overclocking is an offset which would allow you to operate beyond standard. Heat is your consequence. Heat will add wear and cause it to degrade. Eventually, the performance will be compromised if maintenance isn't done, and you won't achieve expected performance. Thruster misfires are visual indicators that something isn't going well or needs attention. Thrusters are going to be available from grades from cheap to premium. Cheap thrusters are made cheap and they're going to take a beating poor. They're going to fail quicker. Heat is clearly visible on the MFDs as an output reading that changes to red when being stressed. After 3.4, if a player damages your thrusters with weapons, it basically adds wear, which makes it misfire and then fail. Cumulative damage makes it fail faster. Your ship will immediately behave more and more worse. Aimed shots can achieve a mobility kill instead of just a kill. They then rounded out a major part of the panel, showing us a new tool that's designed to quickly balance the behavior of ships. Not really much more to talk about. It's cool. Because some ships have thrusters in different locations, the player will naturally notice some ships behaving better at lateral strafe or vertical strafe. The example Gladius now carries much more momentum when making large corrections, but it's nimble. The example Hornet feels heavier when maneuvering, but when you hit the main thruster, the Hornet pilot will most definitely notice. The end state here is the desired result, which is each ship feeling unique. They said that they had tweaked dual stick to be exactly the same as the others, but based on the way I have my sticks configured, what it really looks like is keyboard and mouse and Hotas are both going to behave like I have my sticks configured anyways. The only difference is when I return to 0, my ship won't stop, it'll carry on. And that's it. Thanks for spending your time with me, fly safe, and I'll see you in the verse.